what you guys are eating.
It's you!
Hey!
Hey, it's me!
It's Shirley Watral. You're going to sign our book for us?
I could, or do you want me to sign it after the movie?
Yeah.
How about...
Premieres to the movie? Do we get to go?
Yes!
You can sign mine now and his later.
Sounds good.
Sounds like a deal.
Deal.
Meet the Pressers with Matt Mallory and Klint Necro. Brought to you by Public Safety and Education and the Trigger Pressers Union.
Meet the Pressers is brought to you by Mantis. Mantis X helps shooters suck less. Next Level Training, makers of CERT training products. Henry Repeating Arms, made in America or not made at all. XS Sights, fast sights in any light. Meet the Pressers is also brought to you by these fine companies, shows, organizations, and our Patreon members. Thank you.
Hey, this is Meet the Pressers with Matt Mallory and Klint Necro. And this is a safe place for people to come and press triggers, talk about gear, gadgets, political activism, faith, everything else. And we have an awesome guest that Klint is going to introduce, and we're going to talk about some cool things she has going on.
Yes, we have a very special guest today. She is no stranger to Meet the Pressers.
Been on before.
I think she was on like season 1 or 2. It was very earlier on. It's Shirley Watral. And you've been involved with a lot of different organizations over the years, and you're very active in the pro-gun, pro-liberty community. But she is also an author and soon to be part of the movie business.
Exactly. Not only did I write a book, I wrote the movie script. I actually converted my book into a movie script, and it'll be out the fourth quarter of this year.
Oh, cool. That's super.
And that is super because Dean Cain, Superman from Lois and Clark days, he is acting in it and supporting it along with JC Film Studios.
Oh, cool.
So I'm very excited. It's really surreal that it's got to this point.
It's got to be. It's got to be. So like back the work you put into the book, that was a labor of life, if we will. Mm-hmm. And now it's going into a movie. So like you look back in that history and you probably say to yourself, back then I wanted to give up how many times, right?
Oh, yes.
Right? And now you're like, I'm so glad I didn't. I mean, it's a success story, huge success story as far as being able to turn something into for other people to be inspired and learn from and, see hope at the end.
And that's why I did all this. Trust me, I didn't want my story out there.
Yeah.
I didn't want it published. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk about when people said, oh, you need a movie. I'm like, yeah, all right, I don't think we're going there. But for me, that transition, I mean, a lot of women, domestic violence has been a part of their life. And it all starts pretty much the same, oh, they're awesome, they're sweet, they're attentive. And then somewhere along the line, something happens. And I'm very grateful, thank God, that it happened earlier and I noticed it, that red flag. And even though I went through some life and death situations, I let that event control me to the point that I didn't even realize it. I was living in fear, even after I was no longer in danger. Because it's like they say, how do you cook a frog? Mm-hmm. Put it in the water, keep turning the temperature up. I didn't even realize I was living like that until I took my first firearms class. Wow. And it was like, oh, wow. It was driving home that day. I can still feel it. I was like, ooh, I got self-esteem. What is that feeling? I haven't had that for a while. And then it just kept growing, and I felt like I had courage and confidence. And it's been growing ever since. And that's why I became a firearms instructor, so I could help other women who had situations where they were abused physically or mentally. Mentally and physically is both traumatic, no matter however you look at it. And the results are always the same. There's those wounds that, the black and blue marks, the bite marks, the broken bones will heal, but that what you feel and how you feel about yourself, those are wounds that are hard to heal.
Yeah, I do a lot of instructor development, as Matt does as well. And a lot of times I'll sit down with instructors who are gun people. They know everything about guns, but they don't always recognize that every one of our students, every one of them have some baggage that we're not aware of.
Yep.
And there's a reason, especially nowadays when you have so many people, in their 40s and up, a lot of women that are coming in and this is their first class to get their first gun. There's probably something negative that happened that led them to that decision, because otherwise they probably would have done it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think as instructors, it's important to understand that even though we may not be aware of it, there is probably some heavy baggage there that person is having to overcome, and be a lot more nurturing and supportive as an instructor.
Yeah, just showing up. I remember that first class. Of course, none of my friends didn't want to know anything about guns. But I was like, I just feel like I should. And just showing up and knowing that you're not going to know anybody. And my class at that time was mostly men.
Yeah.
And that was intimidating right there. But I'm so grateful I went through that. So it is important to understand that you never know what that person is going through, what they went through. And just to pay attention how they're reacting, and just reassure them that, you can do this. And when that clicks and their eyes light up and you go, oh, they got it, they feel that same feeling of success. And that's what took me from feeling like a victim to a survivor. That's my differentiation. The victim, I'm no longer a victim, I'm a survivor. I took something where someone hurt me emotionally and physically, and I turned it around, and I'm trying to help other people with that.
Lemons into lemonade.
Exactly.
So you both made me think of something as far as instructors, being instructors. When we're in a class as instructors, we don't want to go up and just like put our hands on somebody, because that could be that PTSD moment where somebody could, break down or whatnot. I even have that aspect in classes where I'm talking about, violent encounters. I've had some people, I could see the emotion, and I'm like, a Vietnam vet was in one of my classes, and he's, I called the break and I started talking to him, and he was just like, nope, that's fine, I can handle it. Just bringing back some of that stuff from Vietnam. So like, wow. So we got to be mindful of that as far as instructors, that we don't put our hands on them unless it's an emergency we have to for safety. Other than that, is it okay? I might have to do this or that. Is that okay with you? Kind of get that okay to make sure people are in their comfortable area with other people touching them, especially if it's a male and a female in a class.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're teaching specifically high performance shooting, which a lot of instructors do that, how to be a better shooter and how to be faster. A lot of competition guys. If you are skirting the realm of defense of any way, we have to understand we're empowering people to take on the responsibility to be their own first responder. And we just happen to be using the gun as the tool by which they can do that. And I think if instructors kind of reframe that idea that way, yeah, we're teaching gun stuff, but it's not about the gun. It's about the student taking on it to say, yes, I can do this.
Exactly. That is true. And I was a general manager at a gun club for quite a while, I think a year and a half, and I took a lot of classes. And I will tell you, and I don't know why, I'll be in a class and I'm like, got to walk away. And I did. I had to turn around and walk towards the back of the room. And every time the instructor was very understanding, they'd come, usually it was a man, and say, you okay? And I said, yeah, I just need a minute. And I remember this one exercise. It was a self-defense, and you had to shoot the steel. And then I forget how far out the other two classmates were, and they come with those spongy things that they hit you with, and fake knives. And you're supposed to be shooting the steel, and they're coming as the distraction, and you still be. And I said, can't do it.
Yeah.
And it took a while. He had the students come to me and not just rush me, but not touch me. And because he said, you don't have to do this. And I said, no, I want to work through this. And it took some phases. First they'd run at me and not hit me. And then they'd come and they'd gently hit me. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm good. So sometimes it's like peeling the onion. You just have to figure out where they are and just let them feel what they have to feel. Because I don't know, certain things happen. And I go, I don't know why I'm getting all emotional. It could happen here talking to you guys. All of a sudden I'll go, and I don't know why. But it's just like, another layer comes up.
A lot of people don't think about it in as depth as, obviously you that have gone through something like that. But a good analogy that might make people think a little easier is that smell. You smell something and it reminds you of your childhood. right? Or that favorite song you hear, like baby shark, baby.
And then I'm so glad my son was not into that.
But then you're like, that's in your head the rest of the day. Our daughter will watch like the Wildcrats, and I'll be out like working on the chickens, and I'll be like singing the Wildcrats song. I'm like, no. But I mean, that's just that something small like that we all have in life is just compounded by thousands for somebody who's had something that's, very traumatic. So yeah, that's, as instructors, that's good for us to make, be aware of that so that we don't trigger it or see that sign. Call a break, like the instructor you mentioned, are you okay? Is everything all right? And then kind of rinse and reset, not just write the person off. Oh, you can't have them, but you're not going to be safe with it, because I think that's a cop out.
Well, we as instructors, we are mentors. We want to nurture people and help them realize their own potential, whatever that is, because it may be just being comfortable staying in the room. Maybe that's what we're going for today. And maybe for someone else it's to carry around in the chamber, but that's difficult for us to see. But if we're so glued to a curriculum and stuff, that's why you got to know your material, right? You know your material well, and you can be paying attention to all those little telltale things and tailor the training to the individuals as much as we can in a group diet.
Yeah, and sometimes I get wound up because, I want them to learn this. You can do this.
Yeah.
But I have to go, okay, that's not where they're at. Let's just back it down.
Yep.
What I want and where they're at, I just have to recognize that, because I'm excited for them too. So I just have to realize that.
Well, I think that speaks to the efficacy of some of the programs like Girl in the Gun and Armed Women in America, where they're doing a lot of, periodic get-togethers.
Yes.
Like, hey, every Thursday night we get together for an hour. And, the science that there is, whatever that means, is showing that shorter classes, shorter blocks of instruction are going to be better for long-term retention, provided they happen at a certain frequency. So being able to do that and say, hey, tonight, I'm just going to give you this, and then we're going to try to keep it positive, right? I always say, like, all teaching is a balance of content and time monkey. So, if I only got an hour, then I got to give them a lot less content, but let's make it positive. Let's let them leave there going, yeah, I want to come back.
Yeah, instead of like, oh, wow, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I want to make a point, going back to domestic violence, because you know what you're supposed to do, right? You're in law enforcement, right? Okay. So maybe you get out of the situation, you go fill out a restraining order. For me, I would fill out the restraining order, and I lived in a gated community with a guard on staff there. And during that time, I was like, okay, I did everything I could. No, I feel safe now. There was 2 places I felt safe: in my gated community and in the office. Now, from the office to the house, that was my I don't know what my concern zone. Like, okay,
tunnel.
Yeah, like he could do anything in that period of time. But neither one of those stopped him.
Yeah.
When I started writing the book and I got all the police reports and the transcripts from the informant and everything, he was either following me, he had a relative following him, or he hired a private investigator. The gated community let him on in. Oh, I want to check out a rental. He knew exactly where I lived. Wow. And the point of all that is that's when women leave an abusive relationship. That's when it gets dangerous. That's when a lot of, I read that 75% of the women that are killed with a firearm in a domestic violence situation have either left the relationship or leaving it. And because it just takes that person. I believe those 2 things that I did pushed him to the point, over the edge where he wanted to kill me. And that's when he came up with all these ideas and ways to kill me. So it's important I think it's important for women to know, one, that's just a feel safe. That's just it's not really keeping you safe. And it's more important you learn to defend yourself more than ever. And that percentage, just when I heard that, I was like, wow.
So it's like we say all the time, you're your own family's first responder. And in this case, you are your own first responder. So getting behind glass only keeps good people honest is something I like to say. So, it's not going to stop somebody who's determined, who doesn't care about the law.
And the current trend, even, the way society has gone over the last 4 years with defund the police, there are thousands. Like, I would say up near 40,000, if I recall the statistic off the top of my head. I don't have it on the end of my tongue. There was something like 40,000 911 calls last year that went unanswered. Like, never answered.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
scary.
You know,
That is.
911, please hold, nothing happens, or it doesn't even get it. So what happens at that point? You know, expecting the government to come and save you is a flawed way of thinking.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And that's why you have to be your own first responder. I love law enforcement. I think you guys don't get the respect. I mean, growing up, we were taught law enforcement, you respect them. Now I don't see that as much. You probably see it less than I do.
Yep.
But it's just like, okay, so we have to be able to protect ourselves, even though I know you're going to get there as soon as you can, but it's usually going to be after the crime's been committed.
We're the cleanup crew. That's what I always like
Exactly.
to say.
You're figuring out who did it and why they did it, maybe, but it's already been done.
Absolutely.
So that's why I impress upon, especially in the community that I live, there's a lot of gated communities, and so many times they'll say, you know, it's a safe place here. I went, okay, just to let you know, even in the safeguarded communities, and you can be in the high-end district, crimes happen, and it's important that you be able to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Not even if you have Superman on your side.
Not even if you have Superman on your side.
Hello, my name is Klint Macro, co-founder and administrator of National Train a Teacher Day. National Train a Teacher Day is a grassroots movement of volunteer firearms, safety, first aid, and defense instructors that offer free training to teachers, school staff, administrators, and those that work with youth in a leadership capacity. We do this every year on National Train a Teacher Day. This year marks the 8th annual National Train a Teacher Day, and we'll be observing it on Saturday, June 21st, 2025. That's Saturday, June 21st, 2025. Over the years, hundreds of volunteer instructors have trained thousands of teachers, school staff, administrator, and those that work with youth in a leadership capacity. If you fit that bill, or if you know someone that does, we encourage you to visit or have them visit the website, which is nationaltrainateacherday.com, and connect with a local instructor and take advantage of this fantastic free training opportunity. We'd like to thank our volunteers, our partners, and our sponsors for helping make National Train a Teacher Day a success each year. But most of all, we want to thank you, the teachers, school staff, administrators, and youth leaders who take the time to empower themselves with information to better protect those that they educate, and that is our children. Visit the website, spread the word, and we will see you on National Train a Teacher Day, Saturday, June 21st, 2025. Thanks.
If you want to see more of Shirley's story, the episode that she was on a couple years ago, you can see it on the YouTube channel. You go into more depth and detail on your story, but you can read about it in the book. But before we wrap things up, I'd like to just ask, I do have some experience in the movie industry, and I was wondering what was the steps? How did it go about from the book getting you into the movie industry? Did someone from that industry find you, or did you know someone who knew? Did Amanda Suffolcall call somebody? She usually sets things up for everybody.
You would think she would be the one. No,
It's 6 degrees, 6 circles over.
She says, I got a guy.
no, it wasn't that way. It was purely coincidental. First of all, writing a book and writing a movie script, totally different.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know.
Do you now walk in somewhere and say interior night? Like, do you see that in your head now? When you, yeah.
It's funny, I do. Late night, point of view, fade out, beat, all those terms. I had to learn. I had a little checklist. I went, okay, which one is that? Okay. But no, I went to a convention called Rise Up Con. It was put on by Kevin Sorbo. Mm-hmm. It was in Tennessee. My friend lived in Tennessee, and I said, hey, Bobby, you want to go with me? Sure, let's go. And they were doing workshops, how to write a script, how to do the fundraising, how to act. It was a Christian-based film company. And we went there and sat through the couple of the workshops, met Kevin Sorbo. Dean Cain never made it. He couldn't get out of Vegas because of the weather.
Huh.
Superman, still bound by weather. But I did meet him later on.
That's funny.
That's when I met Jason Campbell. And we sat through a couple workshops, and we're walking by the door, and I went, Bobby, I just need to ask one more thing. I got the script. I just need to know what my next step is. And you know, you've probably been in that situation. You're sitting in a room, you're kind of talking, like 3 people were talking, and I said, excuse me, are you guys having a meeting? Do you mind if I interrupt?
Yeah.
Too late, you already did. And that's when I told him the story, and that's when it all started there. And it's just been a snowball effect. And then sent him the script. He read the script. And right from the start, when I told him the story, he goes, Dean's going to love this. It has to do with guns and law enforcement. He's just going to love this. And he's going to enjoy this part. And so it's just been a snowball effect. And the cool part is I can be a part of it.
Yeah.
You know, like Dean once said, he goes, you know, you could have sold this to Hollywood. They put a $7 million movie together, but they do their own thing with it. You wouldn't, your story might not even be recognizable.
Yeah.
He said, but here, working with Jason, I'm doing fundraising so I can be more of a part of it. And we work together on the script. Okay, we need to shorten it up. Okay, let's take this, and that. But I just want to make sure that this message gets out and that people are educated about domestic violence, because it is global. It's a global tragedy, what goes on. It's not just here in the United States, it's everywhere. And I don't think people either understand or want to talk about it, because the victims don't even want to talk about it. Because, you know, for me, when it first happened, I was like, what did I do? It must have been me. I did something wrong. I was not raised in that type of an environment. So I was like, oh, what did I do? It must be my fault, and people are going to judge me. So there's all that going on. And I think that's the reason why a lot of victims don't come forward. So I just want to educate people on, maybe even feel, I'm hoping that when they see the movie, they'll feel what a victim goes through. They'll feel what I went through in this situation. The fear, the uncontrollable, you know, starting the car, never knowing if it's going to blow up or not. Every time you open the car door, could it be your last time? And then concerned about your family. Is he going after them? So there's a lot of that, and I want to get that out there. But I also, another important thing is that transformation. Transformation is very important, because I went from living like this and fear to freedom. And I think that's the part of all the movies I watched to do my studying, because that was my homework. I had to watch a lot of movies. They kind of end when, she gets out of that environment. Maybe she gets in a perfect relationship. He either gets killed, goes to jail. But for me, and maybe a lot of other victims, that's really not how it ends. You have to kind of claim your life back again. So I'm hoping that all comes out in the story, in the movie. And there's ways that people can make donations. It's tax deductible, and that information is on there on the back of that. So I don't know if
Super.
But you can also go to heelstoholster.com, and it'll get to you all the information that you need about the movie. And it should be out fourth quarter this year.
Nice.
So maybe you guys can come down and we'll do a big
show
premiere.
Great. I like it.
We'll roll out the red carpet.
Very cool. And he can wear heels.
Yeah, there you go, red. Gotta be red heels.
It's awesome. Always awesome having you on.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Let us know if we can be of any service.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So check it out. There's lots of sponsors that make this show possible, like Mantis, Next Level Training, like Henry, like
XS Sites.
Check them out and give them your business.
Meet the Pressers is brought to you by Mantis. Mantis X helps shooters suck less. Next Level Training. Makers of CERT training products. Henry Repeating Arms. Made in America or not made at all. XS Sights. Fast sights in any light. Meet the Pressers is also brought to you by these fine companies, shows, organizations, and our Patreon members. Thank you.
Thanks for watching the show.
Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and click that little bell thingy so you know when the next episode's coming out. Support us on Patreon. Come to one of our classes. Host us to come to you and do one of our classes at your location.
And until next time,
Adieu.
Thank you for watching Meet the Pressers.